Trace Manning, thank you for joining our show today. I'm excited about this one. Trace and I have known each other a few months now. I know we got connected
Okay.
over social media. I think it was a while back and met up for coffee and joined one of your shows that you were putting together and joined basically from I believe at that time, Trace, you were wanting to highlight local businesses and that sort of thing. And so we got on there and talked about Junk Raider, but we're excited to have you on our show here to talk more about and highlight your business and your brand and everything you do in your world. So uh, with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Trace, to do a quick intro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super flattering that you would consider having little old me on your podcast here. My name is Trace Manning. I am out of Huntersville, North Carolina. I grew up about 30 minutes south in Weddington and have lived in Charlotte my whole entire adult life. Um, I've been in real estate for the past 3 years, 3 or 4 years, 3 years, I think. Time's flying, right? I got in when the getting was good, and the 2020 kind of gold rush, the COVID gold rush, you could call it, when lines for open houses were around the block 2 times over, and I'm still in it when we're in this interest rate interest rate spike that we're seeing now, where lines to open houses aren't quite as long anymore.
Yep.
The demand is definitely still there, but it's a very interesting kind of 180 full spectrum ordeal that I've seen the past couple of years here.
Interesting, because I before we had met, Trace, I bought this home that I'm sitting in now. I think in January of this year, and that was right on kind of for us average home buyers or sellers, folks not in real estate. We think we have a decent idea of what's going on in real estate because we listen to the news and whatnot. So I thought on when we came in to purchase this home, we were kind of on the back end of a lot of that hustle and bustle and just it's a seller's market type deal. And we're like, oh, we'll show up, we'll, kind of do the open house that they've got listed and take our time. If we like it, maybe we'll mull it over and figure it out. And when I showed up at this house, it was exactly what you mentioned. There were cars lining the streets. I mean, I pulled up thinking somebody's got a party going. Like, this isn't the right
Yeah.
house. I did not expect this. But nonetheless, we walked in and there was probably 50 to 75 people walking through the house. And I was like, oh my God, like I don't even need to be here because if there's, there's this many people here, I'm likely not going to win the bid if I even decide to put an offer in. But nonetheless, we were fortunate and we did end up getting this house. But I think after that is really when everything started to come down of like probably what you're experiencing today with the real estate market. But if we back up for a second and just prior to you getting into this 3 years ago, what did you do prior to real estate? Kind of what's your background there?
Yeah, at 37 years old, I feel like I've lived about 9 lives by now. So
That's because
growing up,
you're right.
yeah, that's that's the later section. Growing up, my father owned a construction company, and we built custom homes in Charlotte. So real estate, it's in my blood. I've been
Yeah.
around real estate, driving skid steers, walking in framed houses, being the cleanup crew for my dad when I was in middle school and high school. Um, you know, that's how I grew up. I knew nothing different.
Yeah.
I transitioned into a restaurateur. And college wasn't for me. Didn't really vibe with college. I
Mm.
felt like I was kind of wasting time. I've always had this sense of urgency to make money.
Yeah.
I guess I got to get that from my dad. But went into the restaurant business. For those who are familiar with Charlotte area, we assumed the restaurant La Paz off South Boulevard,
Mm.
and took that restaurant and grew it to 2 locations. The one off South Boulevard, which kind of had a tenant landlord dispute, so we moved it over to the Metropolitan, and that was just booming for years. We did a really great job there, um, and then all of a sudden, we just sales kind of started trickling down. It was family run. We had a couple I don't know if you've ever worked with family before in the past, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah.
Um, so we ended up parting ways with the brand, and then I got into tech sales and had no experience in tech sales. Was always my own boss, or my
Yeah.
dad was my boss, and that was interesting. It was a very boiler room experience. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Highly
Yeah.
recommend it. It was a very boiler room experience. And modern day HR probably would not their heads would pop.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. Quickly grew up the ranks in that, and then I've been headhunted by some of the top tech companies since. Currently work for a construction fintech prop tech company called Built.
Mhm.
That's my full time job. That's what I focus on. From my 9 to 5 perspective.
Yeah.
But real estate, like I said, has always kind of been this thing that I wanted to get into, kind of on my own. I want to own rentals. That's
Okay.
that's what I was looking to do when getting my license. I wasn't really looking to go to the open houses and host the open houses,
Mm.
and talk to clients about why that house won't work just because the carpet's brown,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. But lo and behold, I've kind of got a knack for it,
Yeah.
and I've really enjoyed being the sales negotiation side of it that I've been doing in tech sales for the last 8 9 years is showing its true colors when it comes down to these very competitive deals where you've got a very short amount of time to make a decision.
Yeah.
You've got to walk through and be very transparent with all of the details. If you miss something, that's a huge decision. It's a
Yeah.
very big decision financially for anybody,
Yeah.
and that's on you as the realtor. So um, that's where I'm at now. Still
Yeah.
looking to get that first rental property, but
Yeah.
just kind of enjoying the ride.
Yes, you've obviously got the benefit of kind of both sides of the aisle here, right? With corporate America, standard corporate America, as well as potentially your own business and brand for sure. And I think part of our podcast here is helping folks really understand, or not helping understand like we're a shrink, but highlighting that it's really important for you to know yourself when you get into business building or business ownership. And there's no right or wrong. And I even, in my younger days had a mindset of, entrepreneurship is really the only way to go. If you don't own a business, then you're nobody. And it wasn't until, probably the last 5 to 7 years that I really understood that that's such a juvenile way of thinking, because not everybody's built to be a business owner. And that's not to say that business owners are better than, employees. It's just, it takes almost a different personality to be a business
It's a
owner.
different breed.
And just like it is with coaching sports, like not everybody's built to be a coach. I'm not even talking about being a head coach, just be in the coaching industry, which is something that I did for 3 years when I graduated from college. Was I went out and did that, and it obviously varies from level to level and what resources you have available and whatnot. But nonetheless, it takes a rare breed to be in coaching for many different reasons, and so I relate that to business as well. Um, Not everybody's built to be a business owner. So from your angle, Trace, what are the benefit, the positives and the negatives, I guess, from your job at Built, but also what you do on the side? I shouldn't even say on the side, but just within real estate. I mean, positives and negatives for each.
Yeah. So when I was 11, my dad introduced me to a guy who opened up. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but a guy opened up a buy here. Oh no, it wasn't a buy here, pay here. It was a check cashing business. And this guy had the biggest house in Weddington. It was, I mean, just Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff. And when I asked him for advice, he gave me two kind of off the wall sayings. He
Mm,
said, always save your pennies, but remember quarters are worth more,
yeah,
which, was when I'm 11, I'm like, huh. Now to this day, like whenever I see a quarter, I scoop it. Like
yeah,
it's just it's like instilled in me. And then he said, a job can make you rich, but real estate will make you wealthy.
Hmm.
And I think that's still why it's that beck and call to me. I've
Yeah.
got 3 little girls, and although I got into real estate at a really good time and had a lot of transactions and helped a lot of people very quickly, it wasn't sustainable. Um, I didn't have the momentum to sustain it into today. So, like any adult, I've got to feed my family, right? So,
Yeah.
having a W 2 provides me a sense of security. It also allows me to be a little bit more disciplined with my time, be a little
Mm.
more aware and a little more present. The cool thing about Built is it's still real estate focused, so it's not like I'm switching gears and
Yeah.
selling some just wildly different thing. I'm still focused on real estate at the end of the day. But what it's allowed me to do is be very picky with my clientele.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to go look at a house, absolutely, but I want to make sure they're as qualified as possible, and that's not a selfish thing. That's a you and I, like me and the client thing. I want to
Yeah.
make sure when you're ready to go in a situation that I'm going to bend over backwards for and make sure the deal gets through, that you're also prepared to do it as well. So it's a
Yeah.
two-way street, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think like the mindset is 100%. You have to have the right mind. It takes, like I said, a different breed to want to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs, people who work within companies, can make a lot of money, right? How self satisfying that is, I don't think it's anywhere near the kind of high you get as making your own money for you
Yeah.
and helping other people's, either reach their goals or help them make money through equity or rental properties or a land
Mm.
deal or whatever that is. Like at the end of the day, and this is what I do for a day job is I'm a sales coach, helping my reps reach their goals. Same thing with a realtor, helping my clients reach their goals. I'm all
Yeah.
about it. Like that's what drives me.
Yeah, I think you touched on a great thread that I don't know that a lot of folks, including myself, think about often because we get caught up in kind of the rat race of what's our day like, especially as a W two. But you can get caught up into it as a business owner as well. And I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been in tech sales as well as a W two, and I've been in obviously with Junk Raider, owning and running Junk Raider. But your point about making sure whatever time you're getting ready to allocate is worth it, not only for you but for your customer, whoever that is, potential homeowner, potential home seller, tech sales, if it's going to be a new company you're working with, trying to earn their business, if it's an existing client, they're asking you for something now. Like, does it make sense to even allocate time to it? And I think that's something that a lot of folks almost push to the side, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, because we don't want to deal with the opposite, which is having to say no, because that's really difficult.
Right.
If somebody comes through and you have an initial phone call, at least on the real estate side, I'm sure there's some triggers and things that folks can say that tip you off to be like, ah, this person's not ready, right? Or if they're, or if they are ready, maybe they're not qualified for the type of home they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for $1 million home, but they're only qualified for 500 grand, that type of stuff. And so, it takes a certain person with tact to be able to approach that individual or that company on the tech sales side and be like, look, we're not a great fit for you right now, and here's why. Um,
Yep.
and working through that again on both you having the lens of both W two and business owner is really unique in that scenario. And so I just thought I would reiterate that because I think it's an incredibly important point that not everybody thinks of, and if folks are thinking of it, they're probably shying away from it, just like I have in the
Yeah.
past. I still struggle with it today because I nobody really likes conflict, and we approach those types of situations like, oh, this is a conflict situation. But if we kind of reframe our thinking in that it's not a conflict, or we're going into it um, with the best interest of our client in mind, that's how it's likely going to be received by them, and what's going to
Yep.
yield for you in the future is somebody that trusts you now, right? Maybe in 6 months or a year, they are ready to go buy that $1 million home. And they remember Trace just being completely transparent and down to earth, and saying, hey, at this time, we're not ready to work together because you're not qualified for that home. And I know that's really what you want. So I just thought I'd mention.
Absolutely. And I wanted to point out like we need as a society to reframe how we hear or how we say the word no. It's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? No is a powerful word. It's two letters. It's very short,
Yeah.
right? But it packs a lot of power.
Hmm.
Um, Being able to say no and being able to receive no, we need to be able to take it with more an open mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's no doesn't mean like never. No
Yeah.
just means maybe not right now. And
Hmm.
I've had clients who were not pre-qualified. Um, Maybe they just switched a career or they just bought a car.
Yeah.
The credit score wasn't quite where it needed to be, but that's what pre-qualification helps you with. And I'm very fortunate. I've surrounded myself, right from the get-go. Thankful for like my mentor Brett, who's
Yeah.
got me in contact with very good lenders, and just anybody else that I might need to put somebody onto to speak with. But they always give us a game plan. Like if it's not what they're looking for at the moment, it's okay. Here's the next 3 or 4 steps, 5 to 10 steps sometimes that you
Yeah.
need to take in order to get your credit score right, your finances right, whatever.
Yeah.
You should be able to do this in about 3 to 6 months. Let's try again then.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 or 3 clients. Granted, I've only been doing this for 3 years. So 2 or 3 clients that I've told no to come back to me, like you just said,
Yeah.
because I built that trust. I gave them the tools they needed that, let's be frank, aren't really being given out,
Yeah.
in the education system right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, get your money right, get your scores right, get your
Mm.
mind right, and then
Yeah.
let's do this again in about 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So
Well,
building trust is huge for me.
yeah. Well, in your world especially, but this is true in business, B2B sales, B2C sales, a lot of it is about educating. And I know
Yep.
when I was back, as a first time home buyer, I didn't know anything. And I look at myself as, someone who's fairly intelligent, at least, kind of jack of all trades. Like I have an understanding of most things in life, but that
Right.
going through that first home buying process was a complete crash course in all things, home ownership, which is way
Yep.
beyond, I think, what most folks know about. Not that it's like a huge hill to climb once you become a homeowner and now you've got this big burden. Like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a homeowner. But prior to even getting into your first home, there's a lot of education and things that I would say most of us don't know or didn't know. I certainly didn't when I first got into it, with all the different insurance things that you might have. And obviously first time home buyers are different than, second, third, fourth, and that you've got other
Right.
options. Like maybe you only need 3 or 5% down, or you can go and get an FHA loan or a VA loan. And so there's a lot of educating there. Uh, and it's about trusting who you're working with. In kind of the enterprise B2B side of things, which I've been involved in, sounds like you are as well, Bill. There's still education involved with your customers. It's just outside of real estate a little bit different to me, because you're likely talking with customers specifically in B2B that already know kind of what they're looking at purchasing. So it's not like, oh, you're a first time home buyer. Let me educate you on all things insurance and down payments and escrows and all of that stuff. But with like B2B and enterprise sales, you're still educating the customer, but they already maybe know in the tech space, what cloud services are, and security and physical data center type infrastructure assets. But now they need education on, well, what happens if I go and purchase this new application from Trace, and how does it make not only an impact on my technology, but how does it impact the business overall? Is
Yeah.
there going to be downtime and all that stuff? So anyways, on the education piece, for business owners, but also employees, depending on what role you're in the organization, a lot of it, just like being able to tactfully say no to somebody, protect your time, being able to tactfully walk through things with your clients from an education perspective, and thinking through that lens, I think is incredibly important. And so with that, Trace, a lot of what happens in real estate, and this could be said across other industries as well, of course, with what you're doing at Built and folks who are W-2s, but brand building. And I know this was huge many years ago, likely, before you and I were even born, but even today, more so today, having a brand that folks, coming back to just being able to trust you, that they can know and trust. How important is that in your world? I guess both as at your W-2, but also in real estate, is the brand of Trace Manning.
Yeah. I think branding goes back all the way to medieval times, right? That's like your word. If you think about Game of Thrones, like a Lannister always pays its debts. Like that's a brand.
Hmm.
So it starts with how you treat people. I
Yeah.
treat every person I meet the exact same. Super nice, holding doors. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. Whatever it's got to be. I guess that's the Southern gentleman in me, right?
Yep.
Um, but it's you as a person. It's your energy that you bring. You meet so many people who are just negative, head down all day. I want to be that kind of, this is cliche, but that beam of light and energy when I walk into a room. I
Yep.
want to say that guy knows how to work a room.
Hmm.
So that's physical interaction, branding, but it's also got to be tenfold when it comes to social media or when it
Yeah.
comes to something on the internet. You've got to be bigger and larger than life on those reels.
Yeah.
The information that you're putting out needs to be targeted. I think what a lot of people do is kind of this spray and pray method where they just
Mm.
put a lot of generic stuff out.
Yeah.
For me, what's helped is finding a vertical or a target audience that I want to be my client and working towards that.
Mm.
I've got my reps in with a lot of 200, 300, $400,000 homes. I kind of want bigger now, right? So a lot of my branding and material and content now goes high end luxury. I'm not using anything that I'm listing because I don't have $1 million listing quite
Yeah.
yet. One
Yeah.
day, hopefully, maybe this video. If you're in the market to sell your $1 million home, hit me up. Um, but once I get there, because I've built $1 million homes, because I've been in them, I know them inside and out, like literally. I know I'll be ready for it. I want to convey that in my message. I want
Yeah.
to convey a certain lifestyle. It all goes in the same. I think picking logos, picking colors, just the overall message needs to be cohesive and not the biggest mistake people make is that spray and pray. That's
Yeah.
just putting stuff out, hoping it lands and you're going to get a call. That's
Yeah.
not what's going to happen.
I think
I've
that's
cold called. Yeah. I've cold called for deals. I've emailed for deals. I've knocked on doors. I've got a flyer. I think they're in my car. I put them in people's windshield wipers. Like I'm pretty obnoxious with my guerrilla marketing, and I'll admit it,
yeah.
right? But I spent maybe $200 on some flyers, and they're high quality. I've gotten two or three deals off of that $200.
Yeah.
Now I'm switching gears, and I am an affiliate with Park Bench, and I've kind of let that slip a little bit. I've actually got a project plan to start ramping that back up and ramping those short videos. Um, but that's my next segment. I think YouTube is just this huge market, and if you work YouTube really really well, I
Yeah.
think it can be bigger than Instagram or LinkedIn
Mm.
or anything else because me personally, I feel YouTube lets your personality come out a little bit more. And that's what I've heard from clients who've messaged me on YouTube and said, "Hey, I really like the way you
Yeah.
joke in your videos, or the way
Yeah.
um, you this is you can tell it's all you doing it. You
Yeah.
work this hard for this video. You're going to work this hard for me. Let's
Mm.
chat." So
Yeah.
branding's everything, man.
I think with YouTube, I think you're spot on because YouTube is a platform that natively, when I get on it, I expect longer form video, as opposed to Instagram, where I maybe just see a 30-second, you know, story that Trace just put up. And to that point, what I was going to say is, especially in the real estate space with your spraying and praying comment, and maybe I'm just following the wrong folks, but on our Junk Reader Instagram account, I follow a lot of real estate professionals because transparently we do a lot of work for real estate
Yeah,
professionals and their clients, especially at time of closing. Somebody left a bunch of crap around and needs somebody ASAP to get on site and clean it out. We're there. So I see a lot of their stories and posts, and to your point, a lot of it is just generic, look at this home on 213 Windsor Drive, and I'm like, yeah, it looks nice, but like 99% of the content out there from that real estate agent's page is not them. It's not. I don't know who it is. Like, I can go to their page and see maybe a profile picture. Maybe if I can scroll long enough, I'll see what they look like, or a video of them and their voice like in front of the camera saying, hey, I'm Stacy with EXP Realty or whatever. But a lot of the real estate content I see out there is just, it is very spray and pray, and almost like they're checking a box because they feel
Yep.
like they have to be on social media. And so this is the easy way for me to do it. So I guess if I could give one piece of advice to the real estate community, is take it a step further and look through the lens of people buy from people they know and trust. And
Yeah.
if we never hear your voice, if we never hear your thoughts on anything outside of real estate, it's really tough for somebody to trust you, especially if all we're judging you off of is an online profile, because we all know
Yep.
that can be skewed in many different ways, positive or negative. And so that would be, I look at like Ryan Serhant, which most folks know, I would say, who do anything online. And obviously he's got many more resources available to him than like you and I. But what he's done really well in terms of, your comment about trying to get into a niche, not spray and pray, is he has become the guy in real estate, in my opinion. And I know there's likely a lot more, but whatever, however the algorithm works, his videos come across my feed more often than anybody else's. But he's become the guy who sells high end luxury real estate. But he wasn't
Yeah.
there a long time ago, but he basically took a kind of an old, stale, boring industry in real estate. And I don't mean to crap on the real estate industry, but it
I'm
wasn't
not taking
until
any offense.
yeah, it wasn't until he started doing stuff in the digital space where like real estate became interesting for all of us who aren't actively buying or selling a property. I'll watch a 10 to 15 minute walkthrough of that $200 million penthouse he's trying to sell in New York all day, because
All day.
it's he's his videography is awesome. His how he edits, and it's not him doing it. He's got a team behind him, but like, if you, I guess to your point, about finding a niche, like if you can become the guy that helps first time home buyers and that's your thing, or you only sell $1 million, really like your high end luxury real estate sales, or you specifically focus on South End Charlotte and that is what you do. Like if you can
Yep.
somehow portray that online and folks catch on to that and see that all over your pages, like you're going to carve out a niche built on trust, because you folks will assume you know what you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And that's what I'm doing right now with park benches. I'm focusing on Huntersville.
yeah,
Um, that's where all my flyers are going. I haven't done any mailers yet because let's face it, man, I get out and walk a few miles every single day. So why
yeah,
not walk and just hang some flyers at the same time?
yeah,
Get out and meet the community. I've shook
mhm.
so many hands, um, pet so many dogs. You feel kind of like a politician sometimes, because you're just selling yourself. I mean, there's
Yeah,
there's there's so much to it, um, but it's a lot of fun. It's definitely work. It's definitely more than just opening a door, showing a house, and sending some paperwork. It's a
yeah,
lot more, and it's not $1 million listing
yeah,
or selling sunset by
hmm,
any means. But it's real estate's. I love it. I just
yeah.
love it.
Well, most like any other industry, I know this is especially true in real estate, probably the biggest industry for this, but it's referrals. And the only way you get to be that referral, like where you can almost base your entire business on referrals, is working your butt off out of the gates to get your listings and start to creep up. You've done the 200 to $400,000 homes. Now you just got an $800 pop, and now the next one's a million, and you become that person that folks trust, and they just refer you to the next guy, and then the person you sold the house to
Yep.
previously now wants to sell it, so they come back around. So in in your business, that referral and just word of mouth is incredibly important, and you can't get there if you're not boots on the ground out and so everything I've mentioned about social media and how important that is, people still need to see you out in the community, especially in real estate.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you mentioned it. Last thing before we go, Trace, for folks looking to get into, I guess, either a W-2 gig or into real estate, what would your advice be? Like, if you could just give one piece of practical advice to, doesn't even have to be a young person, just be anybody that's like, oh, I want to, change careers, and I'm an employee over here, but I want to go and be an employee over here. or
Yeah,
somebody that's coming out of school or is an employee and wants to go into business ownership. Maybe it's become get into the real estate space. What advice would you have for folks?
it's super simple. Do the work,
Yeah,
right? That's it. That's my life's motto. In my home gym, I got this like self-made thing, and it just says "do the work." And every time I'm like,
yeah,
"Man, I don't want to do this squat," or "I don't want to do this," I just look up at that. I'm like, "All right, I got to do it."
yeah.
Right? Where you want to be and where you are, the only difference there is the work in between. And
Mhm.
if you just have that mindset, you're going to go places.
Yeah,
Just continuous pursuit of where you want to be, whether it's vision board. Like I'm a sucker for a vision board. I make them every year. You
yeah,
put your goals out, you break down your finances. That gives you something to work towards. I feel like once you get out of school, there's nobody constantly looking over your shoulder to making sure you've got
Mhm.
your schedule
Yeah,
aligned and your work due. I guess your boss if you're a W-2, but if you work for yourself, there's no one watching you, right? If your family doesn't eat because you don't work,
yeah.
simple as that.
Amazing.
So just constantly working, constantly striving to be better, working on discipline, working on focus. It's exhausting. I didn't have these bags in my eyes 10 years ago, but 5 years ago, I
We
didn't
don't
have these
see them.
bags in my eyes. I
We don't
think
see
there's a
them.
filter automatically on the Mac. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, but it's like I said, where you want to be and where you are now. The only difference is the work in the middle. If you just have that mindset, you know, you're
yeah.
going to go places.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Trace, we appreciate you being on, man. It was a great conversation. We obviously wish you all the best in your endeavors and everything that you go into next. And I'm
I
sure we'll
appreciate
be in
that.
touch very soon. So, again, thank you for joining.
Yeah, you can find me on social media. Trace sells your place. That's YouTube and Instagram. So look forward to connecting with everybody. Davis, thank you for having me.
You
This has
got it.
been a great talk.
Awesome.